Welcome to Private Equity Profits. Clifford Locks is a certified board of director, a trusted confidant to CEOs, C-level exec, and high-potential employees to help them clarify goals, unlock their potential, and create actionable strategic plans. Seth Greene is the nation's foremost authority on growing your business. He is the founder of the direct response marketing firm Market Domination LLC, and he is an 8-time best-selling author who has been interviewed on NBC, CBS, Forbes, Inc., CBS Money Watch, and many more. Cliff and Seth interview top players in the financial sector, focusing on private equity and real estate funds, discussing developments and trends shaping the industry. These experts will share with you how they've leveraged the power of equity funding to grow their businesses and increase profits, and how you can too. And now, here's your host, Seth Greene.
Welcome to the podcast. This is your co-host, Seth Greene. Today, I've got the good fortune to be joined by Rudy Burger of Woodside Capital. Woodside Capital Partners is a leading global investment bank delivering strategic and financial advice to emerging growth companies in the technology sector. Rudy, thanks so much for joining us.
It's a pleasure, Seth. I'm very happy to be joining you.
All right, let's go back in time a little bit. How did you get started?
Well, I took a pretty non-standard, non-traditional route into investment banking. I think a lot of my contemporaries, colleagues in the investment banking industry took finance courses in college, went on to business school, and then perhaps went to one of the larger investment banks on Wall Street, and their career sort of jumped off at that point. I'm a double E, went into life as an entrepreneur pretty early on. I started 5 companies, all in the digital imaging and computer vision space. Took one public in the mid-90s, and a couple of successful trade sales. So my path to investment banking was as an entrepreneur, and oftentimes being pitched by bankers who understood the business from a perspective of the financials, but didn't really understand the market that we were operating in or the technology that we were developing. And so I was inspired to get into banking by realizing that there was a different way of approaching this.
All right, well, that makes a lot of sense. And certainly you are correct. That certainly comes up as more non-traditional. How did you arrive at Woodside Cap?
Well, I started the firm about 20 years ago now. I had just finished a stint over in London running a public company. And the public company, I will not mention any names, but it was frankly a mess. And to turn it around, I needed to sell off 11 of the 13 business units. And that was really my introduction to banking. So when I came back over to the US in, this would have been, I suppose, around 2002, something like that, 2003. I was living in Woodside, California at the time, and was introduced to an individual who was a Goldman Sachs refugee and had started this firm, Woodside Capital, but was really running it, as a side business. It was just him. And he wanted to go off and start a venture fund. So I offered to buy the business from him, and that's what happened. And, I liked the name, so kept it. And, I've been building the business out ever since.
Well, congratulations on that. It's obviously been quite a journey. What do you feel makes Woodside Capital unique?
So our real uniqueness is in our subsector specialization. So we have a team of managing directors, each one of which focuses in on a specific subsector within technology overall. So I cover, no surprise, imaging and computer vision technologies across automotive, consumer, health tech, security. So that's my area. We have cloud infrastructure, IoT, health technology, security, and so on. We probably have a dozen different technology subsectors that we go sort of narrow and deep into. Each MD is expected to publish an industry report on their sector at least once a year. And so what makes us different, I think, is the sector specialization that many of our MDs, are not just finance jockeys, but have industry experience, whether it's at large companies or smaller startups. As an example, a couple of our more recent hires, the individual that runs our Zurich office, Andrew Bright, most recently was running corporate development for ABB, and he heads up the IoT sector for Woodside Capital. One of the co-leads of our health technology sector, Asla Aras, was most recently running corporate development for Agilent. So we're pulling people out of industry that have direct experience in the areas that they're that they're focused on.
Obviously, that helps. They speak the language, they talk the talk, and walk the walk. Who is? I know you've served the gamut from a SMB to Fortune 1000 companies. Who is an ideal client for you?
An ideal client is obviously a technology company based either in US or Europe that is doing revenues of, let's say, between 10 and maybe 60, $70 million, that is has developed significant differentiation in their product. So there is uniqueness value to the company. We like companies where we can sell the client, sell the company for a value that has more to do with the contribution that they're going to make to the buyer's P&L rather than some multiple on their P&L, the so-called strategic premium. So, and then we'll market the client worldwide. So that's the sort of size. We do transactions up to 300 million is probably the sweet spot. And, we typically don't work with pre-revenue companies. So, companies that have, a few $1 million of revenue, and, we can make the shareholders very happy.
What is your favorite successful exit story?
Ooh, wow. I have so many of them.
Pick one. It doesn't have to be your absolute favorite. Give us one.
Well, we sold the company to Microsoft a few years ago. And, first of all, in our business, you have to have a thick skin. You have to, be prepared to hear no a lot, because most of the time, it's the prospective buyers are, for one reason or another, is going to decide it's not a fit for them. One of my favorite stories was a client we sold a number of years ago to Microsoft, where we went in through the traditional channels through corporate development, and we got a series of no's, and we then sort of retrenched and thought about the business unit specifically within Microsoft that would most benefit from this, and went back out, approached that individual directly, and eventually sold the company to Microsoft for a very nice sum. And I like the story because it reemphasizes the model that I suppose every salesperson knows is don't be put off by the first few no's that you get. And in our business, especially with large companies, it's all a question of finding the right person to talk to.
That makes a lot of sense. I find a lot of times we learn more by avoiding other people's failures than we do from their successes. What have been some of the adversities and the challenges you've had to overcome growing Woodside Cap and helping your clients? What'd you learn?
I've learned the importance of team. I'm lucky to have found a team of like-minded individuals, partners that are growing the company with me. I managed the firm for the first up until about 2 years ago, and then handed the day-to-day management of the firm to one of my partners, Kelly Porter. Excuse me. And I think first and foremost, I've come to appreciate, the importance of working with people who like and respect each other. I've learned this business is selling all the time. I think I've come to appreciate that, no single individual is good at all aspects of every job. This one, investment banking, contains a healthy mix of sales, the ability to sort of think financially and analytically, be able to look at an income statement or a balance sheet and immediately see what's going on, to be able to think strategically. And I think it's important to appreciate that, some people naturally gravitate towards more of the sort of back office function, some more towards front office. So to understand what people are passionate about, what they're good at, and, put them into roles where they can survive. I've learned that, again, thinking about the team, that individuals, you can build a team with a particular ethos, but that ethos is fragile, and you have to stay very vigilant to make sure that it's not being undermined by individuals that don't have the same values. One of the more my background is from Europe, from the UK. I grew up in the UK, and I early on with Woodside realized that the brand of Silicon Valley is worth more the further away from Silicon Valley you get. So we pitch quite a bit of our business in Europe because it actually means something to be a Silicon Valley investment bank in Copenhagen, and means absolutely nothing in Palo Alto.
Right, where there are plenty of fish in the sea.
Yes.
So you've built such an amazing reputation over the years. How are the clients coming to you now? Is it all word of mouth, or do you do any actual external business development?
Sure. Business development, Well, first of all, the SEC and FINRA have very strict guidelines on, sales and marketing. So, we have to be careful to adhere to that. But the marketing that we do is primarily through the industry reports that we publish, and that obviously communicates expertise in the individual sectors. I talk at, and we all talk at, conferences. I have to say I did a lot more of that up until about a year ago. It's rewarding talking to a few hundred people at a conference. I find it quite difficult, or certainly more challenging, giving a presentation to an audience of, you have no idea who's on the other side, which is typically the Zoom conference experience. But presentations and networking, industry reports is the primary marketing vehicle. And then, having been in the business for a long time, it's referrals and word of mouth.
What do you like best about what you do?
It's never boring. It is a very challenging business. It's a business where you have to be prepared to hear no a lot. It's unpredictable, and many of the surprises that happen are to the downside. I live for the client, where we sign an engagement letter, and a week later some buyer comes out of the blue, offers some insane amount of money for the company, and everybody's happy and nobody's really had to do any work. 20 years later, that's never happened. But I live for the so-called bluebird or upside surprise. Maybe one day. In reality, we work very hard for our clients to deliver the results they are looking for. I thrive. Maybe I'm an adrenaline junkie. I thrive on the thrill of the chase, and the close. I get to work with maybe 4 or 5 different companies every year. And so I get to know the people, the technology, the markets, and that all sort of the experience sort of builds on itself. There are many facets to the business. So, it's an interpersonal, it's a relationship business, it's a sales business, it's a finance business. So, I think the diversity of every client experience is what keeps me engaged.
You give advice every day. What's the best advice you've ever gotten?
Well, I would say, as an entrepreneur, I've received huge amounts of advice over the years. And some of it, I suppose the best advice is sort of perhaps the advice that stuck with me. And so one board member of mine used to tell me that he had never fired someone too soon. And obviously what he meant by that, and it sounds harsh, but the reality is that when you have to make a change, many people know what they need to do well before they actually get around to doing it. And they would have been better off if they followed their gut and did it when they first realized that the change was necessary. So that was an incredibly important, influential piece of advice. Another a great piece of advice that I received was, there are all sorts of things you can change about your business downstream, after the business is launched. But there's one thing in particular that you really have to get right at the outset, and certainly before you take anybody else's money, and that's the business model. How you're going to sell, whether you're licensing, selling physical product, selling directly, selling through channels, simply because it becomes so much more difficult to change these things, after the first year or two. And then I think lastly, one of the best pieces of advice and wisdom that I received was around diversity and where new ideas come from. And the answer was, and again from chairman of a company that I ran, and the answer was very simple: that new ideas come from differences, differences of socioeconomic, cultural, racial background. And I think that I really try to bear that in mind. Investment banking has been traditionally, a bunch of, white men, of which, of course, I'm one. But if you look at the makeup of Woodside Capital over the years, we have tried very hard to have a racially diverse group, not because we're trying to be politically correct, but because we're a better firm as a result of it.
What is, I would say, you're a voracious learner. In addition to producing a lot of content as a firm, you're always trying to stay on the forefront of many different industries. How do you keep on top of it all?
Reading. I used to be sort of talking to people and networking. The pandemic has been a dual-edged sword. It's much harder to meet people face to face. On the other hand, I found that people are more willing to jump on a Zoom call and just chat. I think everybody's a little lonely, stuck at home. So I try to stay abreast of what's going on by talking to smart people and listening to what they have to say. I'm a voracious reader. I listen to a lot of podcasts, and I stay abreast of new and interesting ideas in my field that way. Same way everybody does, I think.
I think you're selling yourself. I think you're doing a lot more than everyone else, as evidenced by your success. For our folks who are interested in learning more about Woodside Cap and all things Rudy, where is the best place for us to send them?
Well, obviously they can take a look at our website, woodsidecap.com. They are welcome to contact me directly, Rudy at woodsidecap.com. All of the industry reports that have been published by members of the firm are available for download for free off our website. You don't have to be a member, it doesn't cost anything. So, I think that those are a couple of good ways of becoming more familiar with all things Woodside Capital.
All right. Well, we greatly appreciate your time. This has been Seth Greene here with Rudy Burger of Woodside Cap. Rudy, thanks so much.
Seth, it's been a pleasure.
Thanks everybody for watching or listening. We'll talk to you next time.